Hi Sherry, how's it guys? Thanks for joining. Guys, for those of you who have joined in this evening, I've got a very interesting gentleman that I'm going to be chatting to this evening, and someone who I've actually never met before. He spends a lot of his time in South America in the Amazon rainforest, doing a lot of work from conservation and to working with communities, and is even an author of a book. I'm going to try and see if I can get him on and see if we can find him. But essentially, Paul Rosolie, like I said, is a naturalist. He's an explorer, and he's also a writer. I've had a look at some of his photographs, and I've been a huge fan of his for a number of years, just following him on Instagram. So again, we've actually never connected before, but it's an awesome excuse to connect, and we've decided to do it live on Instagram. So thank you guys for joining us. Let me see if I can get Paul on the line. I know he's all the way in Adam on. Let's see. There we go. Let's try this again, Paul. It looks like he's unable to join now. I know he's pretty much hiked up to a mountain, I think, to get better signal. He is based somewhere in the States, so let's see if we can add him on. Yeah, there we go. That looks like it might work. Hey, there he is.
There it goes. It's working.
Nice one, buddy. I'm glad we could finally make it up, and it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, exactly, man. I heard you sort of introing, and the fanship is mutual, man. I love your account. I love following your work. I hope you'll tell my side a little bit about what you do too as we go through this.
Awesome. And I mean, again, I think for me, I've spent the last couple of months, I don't know what position you've been in, but I've spent the last couple of months, I guess, in lockdown. So, we've been reaching out to, people in the space. And for me, it's just been such an amazing opportunity to kind of connect and really, always makes my week when I'm able to connect with people doing amazing stuff. It's the first time I'm connecting with someone who works in a rainforest. So I'm really looking forward to learning more about the work you do, Paul.
Yeah.
And I guess getting to know you a little better. So yeah, thanks for making the time, man.
Dude, absolutely. You put it together, man. So thank you.
You grew up in the forest, if I'm correct. I mean, the cool thing about this conversation is we don't really know each other from a bar of soap. We have similar backgrounds or similar interest with regards to conservation and working in wild places. But I don't know you from a bar of soap, so I'm thrilled and intrigued, to say the least, in terms of learning a little bit more about where it all started for you.
Yeah, I was actually, weirdly enough, I was born in New York City. I started out in Brooklyn, and my parents moved to the suburbs. So when I say I was raised in the forest, it was like as soon as I was out of school, I was in the woods. And I mean, I'm talking like toddler level. I see you got some young ones running around, or at least one, right?
Yeah, another one on the way.
Another one on the way. And since like that age, it was just like my parents would be like, do you want the trucks? Do you want the dinosaurs? Or do you want to go to the woods? And I'd just be like, the woods. And so growing up, it was just every weekend in the woods. And then as a teenager, it would be like, like a hunting knife and a stake and my dog. And we just go out and get lost. The rule was you had to get lost and survive, overnight, no shelter, one match. And then it just, as high school deteriorated, I can't take rules. And I really just, sort of, once I broke out of high school, I said, well, what is it that I really want to do? And I said, let's go see the Amazon before it's gone. So by the age of 17, 18, I was working in the Amazon with indigenous people and going on adventures that I never thought I'd be able to do.
And the Amazon, I mean, I realize you're from, North America. I mean, South America, I've never been myself, but I guess the Amazon, covers, over a couple of million square kilometers and covers a couple of the northern South American countries. What was it about the Amazon that kind of drew you to that part of the world?
I found it very disturbing growing up, hearing that there were species going extinct. That was very difficult for me. I don't feel ashamed to say that when I was a little kid and my parents were reading me stories about, the Galapagos tortoises, where there was one left. There was a Galapagos tortoise named Lonesome George. And I was crying my eyes out. I was very upset by this idea that there were things that were going to be gone because of us. If it was natural, maybe it would have been different. But the fact that we were making things extinct was very, very difficult for me. And so the Amazon was always like, I mean, it's just like if somebody said you could go to Middle Earth, you could go to space, you could go wherever you want. I was just like, the Amazon. And so, there's more life there than anywhere else. There's, I think, 8 or 9 South American countries that it encompasses. It's bigger than the continental U.S. It's one of the largest physical features on our planet. And so it's influencing so much of our weather patterns, our climate stability. I mean, all of the fact that South America is this agricultural giant that supports Asia and the rest of the world is all because of the precipitation caused by the system in the Amazon. And so to me, seeing that was my, life's dream at age 16, 17. Just seeing it was the dream. Never, ever sort of thought that what was going to happen happened, where I would step in there and it would just, it was like the beginning of Jurassic Park when they see the dinosaurs for the first time. I was just like, oh, this is where it's going to happen. This is where I belong. For sure.
Amazing, man. I guess for me, it was I had a similar kind of upbringing where I also grew up in the city. I always had a passion for the bush. My dad was a very keen birder, and his father actually traveled the world collecting birds' eggs. It would be completely frowned upon now, but that was his way of exposing himself to the natural world, and also ended up spending from the age of 20 or 19 onwards in the bush. But again, we haven't spoken much about it, but you alluded to the fact that you literally immersed yourself in the Amazon and in South America. How many years did you spend, and how did that, obviously that passion develop into, actually, learning more about the Amazon and actually accomplishing all the things that you have?
Well, when I got down there, I made friends with the local people very quickly, and the knowledge base in the Amazon is so profound. Animal tracking, medicinal plants. I mean, just sort of that hyper awareness of what's going to happen next and where things come from. It's so deep. So I was learning. And then the main guy who I was sort of doing research under, he didn't know anything about snakes. And I've always been rescuing snakes, always been trying to teach people that snakes are not terrifying monsters, and so when I was just picking up all these snakes, he was just like, how are you doing that? He was like, you have to teach me. And then, yeah, it was the one thing out of thousands and thousands of things that I could exchange with him in terms of knowledge. And so that got me invited on indigenous hunting expeditions. So we'd go up for 10 days, 2 weeks, and be out in areas that you're, impossible to get to without a severe commitment in time and a risk to your life. But I'd go out with these guys, and then, you don't even realize you're learning. You're out on a boat, we all peel off our clothes. You're out in the sun for hours and hours and hours. You're out in the rain for hours and hours and hours. Whatever happens, happens. And these guys would be hunting, a couple of wild boar and a couple of monkeys. But, the thing was, they were like, okay, we want to put Gringo Loco. We want to put the crazy foreigner guy in front of an anaconda and see what happens. And so they got a kick out of that. And so we started having these really crazy adventures. So I kind of became part of the family. And then all these guys, because of the conservationists that came before me, there's a big culture of ecotourism down there. And so my mentor, this guy named JJ, Juan Julio, he has sort of a lodge that he uses as a research site and a tourism base. And he was having trouble recruiting foreigners. And I was like, man, I can go back and just show people pictures of this stuff and they'll come. And I'm still at age 19. And I did it and it worked. And then that just started snowballing. So it's spending time with the locals, rushing back and trying to make college semesters, which I didn't always make. And then slowly putting together an ecotourism company. And then that turned into, how much of this can we protect? How much of this can we save? And then along the way, I had a lot of luck. The fact that we found lots of anacondas and started investigating why are they disappearing? Why are there less anacondas than there used to be? The other thing that happened that was very important for me was that, you know, in the Amazon we have giant anteaters, which is, you know, 6 or 7 feet from nose to tail, this huge animal with these claws and a very, very delicate nose with no, you know, it's just cartilage. It's completely delicate. And so, but they have to be able to defend themselves against jaguars. So these are tough animals, and the babies ride on the mother's back for the first 6 months or so. And the local people down there believe that if you try to shoot a giant anteater, the bullet will ricochet off of it and either kill you or go somewhere else. And so the young guys go and they try to shoot the giant anteaters. I adopted a baby giant anteater and spent weeks and weeks and weeks trying to teach her to eat ants, and just walking her around the forest, keeping her on my back, taking naps with her. And she'd use that tongue. They have that tongue that's like, you know, really long as your forearm, and then she'd fire that up my nose and like in my ear and stuff. I mean, we got so close. So I got to learn the forest from an animal and learn the forest from the local people, and then come back and sort of try to tell everybody else how amazing this thing was. And then after a few years, it was that we first saw the Trans-Amazon Highway cutting into our river, and that's when I started to see forests coming down. Areas that were pristine and wild, just so sacred and beautiful, started getting destroyed. And that's when I was like, okay, it's not going to be just going out here and having fun adventures and taking beautiful pictures. It's going to be that we have to protect this place. You know, already at that point, I felt like I'd gotten so much from it that I owed it to protect it.
And these guys that you met initially, you know, how did they respect, you know, their natural environment? Were they responsible for cutting down, you know, a number of, I guess, these natural resources, or was there a level of respect? Because I recently saw an awesome post that you did where I think it's someone that's actually involved with your organization, and he used to be a logger. And he's now obviously protecting, you know, the very thing that he was destroying once upon a time. I think you raised a little bit of money for him for an operation or something.
Yeah. So a lot of these guys, I mean, they don't have a ton of options, and so the ones who are fluent in English and who have been a little bit more privileged have the opportunity to work in ecotourism. And then for the rest of the guys, for instance, this guy that you're talking about, Victor, he was a logger. He's been a logger his whole life. And then JJ said to him, he was like, you know, why don't you come drive boat for us? You know, you can hang out with foreigners and get to eat good food and, you know, teach people about the forest. And I mean, as soon as he did, he was like, this is so much better. I don't have to worry about trees falling on me. I don't have to be out in the jungle for 4 months at a time. I don't have to get shot at by tribes. So he was like, this is great. And then, so, you know, he's also earning more money, which is, at the end of the day, the thing that sort of changes it. So we've had luck doing that with gold miners, loggers, where it's just like, guys, just last year, me and Trevor Frost went to the Malinowski River, and we were going up to this place with illegal gold miners, and everyone was like, oh, they're going to kill you. Like, you know, let us know where you're going so we can find your body parts. Wow. These guys are the nicest guys in the world. And we were so stoked to see their forest. And yeah, they were shooting monkeys and harpy eagles and just destroying everything. And the gold mining is very harsh on the land. But we said to them, we said, why don't you just, you know, try working in ecotourism? And we showed them pictures of what we do. We showed them pictures of us, you know, showing people from all over the world the rainforest. And they literally just stopped what they were doing, invested the money they had from gold mining, and built a lodge. And then in January, we brought our first trip there, and it was a huge success. And these hardcore criminal gold miners who are fighting the Peruvian Navy and who everyone's terrified of, they're swimming in the river with us. They're teaching people about flowers. They're pointing out birds. It's just the transformation's so quick.
Amazing. Eh? We've seen it in Africa as well. You know, a lot of organizations that we've worked with have actually flipped poachers. You know, and often these, you know, it's strange because they are the nicest guys, but at the same time, they have such an incredible, unique skill set, and obviously use that skill set to, you know, to apprehend, you know, poachers. So we've seen some of the most formidable scouts in Africa, you know, once upon a time they were poachers themselves. So that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that you've managed to do, and, you know, I don't think you have to have a passion for or a particular ecosystem or even wildlife. But just seeing some of the images, of you, I guess, being tactile with various animals, which I've always thought is a great thing to do in terms of finding that balance. Firstly, you're able to educate people about a specific species if you're handling it. You're able to break barriers. And obviously, you're always sensitive with these snakes. And I think that's something that I found quite fascinating, is just looking at some of those photographs of you with, anacondas, but also some seriously venomous snakes. And I don't know, would you mind if I just brought up one or two photographs and you could talk to them? Because
please.
That's an anaconda, right?
That is an anaconda. That was one we caught. And amazingly, that's only about 4.5 meters. It's not a very big anaconda.
My goodness.
Yeah, so that was one of the first big ones we caught, and we sort of helped JJ up with that one, and he held it, and we wanted to measure it and weigh it, and the night before we'd put a fish that we'd caught in a pot and left it on the open boat, and for everybody that doesn't know caiman, our crocodiles, caiman in the Amazon. This big black caiman came and just ate the pot, the weighing scale, all of our fork spoons, and the fish.
No way.
The only thing we had was that JJ was just like, yeah, this is like 100 kilos, and then we put it down.
Nuts, absolutely nuts. And I mean, we've grown up, always, I guess, as a South African, we don't have anacondas. We've got the Southern African rock python, and, we know about reticulated pythons as well, which I think are the longest, certainly the longest snake in the world. But these are heavier. These are heavier than the reticulated python.
Oh, yeah. I've been on that same trip where we took that photo. We had an anaconda that was on a huge pile of sticks. Like when a river bends and it deposits all the sticks on one side, trees really. And we kind of had this plan because we could tell that she was flicking her tongue, and we were like, okay, so I'll go from the bottom. I was like, you guys take the boat and you come from this side. But that was a pretty big distance, so I got to her first, and just as she's going in the river, I grab the tail. She comes back out, grab the head, and she flips a coil over my arms, so that pins my arms together, and I'm going, even if I want to get out of this, I can't get out of this now. Next coil comes over my head. And so as my shoulders are getting pulled together, these guys all showed up, and they start unwrapping me and everything. But, man, they can snap your bones like you're nothing, like you're sticks.
And what are they predating upon? I mean, you've got I guess some large game in the Amazon forest, or do they go for things as large as tapirs and other large mammals?
Oh yeah, we actually came upon one that had just constricted a wild boar, and the way we found it was we heard the boar's spine cracking, and then we looked down the stream and went, oh my god. I have people that have seen them eat tapirs. I know a guy that cut open an anaconda and found a boa constrictor inside of it. So they're eating other snakes. They're eating the largest mammals in the Amazon. They're preying on the caiman, birds, fish. And that's really why studying anacondas is so interesting, because if you take like a big cat, take a lion or a jaguar or something, or an eagle, usually these predators sort of have a segment of the ecosystem that they're specializing in. An anaconda starts off tiny, comes out of its mother live, and they're just, a little bigger than your finger. And then it can grow to be, so big, these giant things that could eat the largest animals in the forest. So they're affecting every level of the forest. They're starting out with like fish and baby crocs and frogs and going up to rodents and birds and other things. And then you're hitting apex predators. So their influence on the Amazon is tremendous, and we still know very, very little about them.
There's another photo that gave me a bit of a heart attack. We've got a snake in Africa called the puff adder. It accounts for more deaths, I'm sure in Africa than any other snake, and it's just because it's very sluggish, but it's got an incredibly fast strike, and obviously a cytotoxic venom that can cause problems. This is the largest viper on the planet, right?
Yeah. That's a Bushmaster, and if anybody, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm sweating through my shirt in that picture.
I would be too, but
yeah, no, that was my first one that size as well, and they're incredibly docile in the daytime. It's almost like they're sleeping. So you can handle them and everything else, but if you see them at night, they will stand up. And like every snake, I've heard all these myths. You know, people will say, "Oh, a bushmaster will chase you. A black mamba will chase you." I don't know about the black mamba, but a bushmaster, I've never met a snake that will chase you. What they will do is, if you get too close to a bushmaster, they will S up and just be like, "Look, if you want to fight, I'll provide it." They're just providing a service. They're like, "If you want to die, here it is."
Yeah.
But they're incredibly peaceful snakes. We've had them on the trails where they'll curl up, you know, sort of just in a spiral and sit there for a month.
Amazing.
So it's just like, oh, everybody just make sure that when you're on, you know, Trail B, go around the bushmaster. And it's just, you know, they're just like anything else. They just want to be left alone.
It's interesting you bring up the black mamba. You know, it's such a notorious snake, and I think, you know, in Africa there's also lots of myths around them, but I think also a very sedentary snake. It's you know, the females will definitely protect their young. We've seen evidence of that. And I think just, you know, being able to raise 2/3 of their body you know, up you know, in the air. You know, we've often had, and I've actually had it happen to myself, where you've driven across along a road, and we've actually had these snakes strike the vehicle before. And, you know, we often work with trackers sitting on the front of the vehicle. These guys see a black mamba in the road, and the first thing they do is like almost assume a roll position back into the back of the car. So they've really got a reputation in Africa. You know, people do sadly get bitten by them every now and again, but I think it's very similar to, you know, the type of behavior you've talked to with regards to the bushmaster. You've had a couple of close calls, though. I mean, I saw there was, you can't see you sadly in this picture, but this is just a screen grab, I think it's a boa that might have nicked you while you were trying to catch it.
No, I had caught this one, and this was just when I was getting into filming and sort of trying to get some footage of things, and this was such an impressive snake. And I put the camera really, really close to the snake to try and get a close-up on it, because it had its mouth open, big head. And when she struck, it was so powerful. I mean, that thing's, you know, as big as your thigh. And she went straight through the mic and just hit me right on the face. And that was, I mean, I think I'm like 19 in that video, though. It's a ridiculous video.
Classic, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, this I just want to bring one more photograph of a snake up, because it's a little off topic, because, you know, it was obviously taken in India, but that's a king cobra, and I mean, you know, again, a snake that I've always wanted to see, and I just can't believe how comfortable you are while handling, you know, I think one of the biggest venomous snakes in the world.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, we were in India, and we were trying to document the human snake conflict, because India is one of the only places that I've seen that really has this culture of, like, they have snake rescuers. There's people in almost every village, almost every city, that will go out and rescue the snake if you call them. And
oh, really?
Yeah, and it's quite beautiful, because, you know, if you don't call a snake catcher, someone's going to kill the snake. And a snake this big, it came for water. It just, everything was dry and it wanted to drink, so it came close to humans. And so as we were releasing it, you know, we just, you know, measured it and took a few pictures, and then we released it. But the king cobra is actually very dignified. It stands up, and it can stand up quite tall. I mean, this snake was big. And the thing is, smaller snakes I find much more dangerous to work with, because you're working much more closely with them. Their strikes are much more quick. Whereas this guy stands up, and it's kind of like the bushmaster. It's like, look, don't make me do this. You know, so he would stand up and just be like, look, you guys know what I am. Back up. I mean, elephants will respect the king cobra, so they know their position. Whereas a spectacle cobra or something will go up on its hood and just be like, whack, 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 and their whole thing is, I'm going to scare you into leaving. Where a king cobra is just like, look at this, you don't want this. Like, it's pretty interesting.
Amazing, eh? It's the power of, I'm just having a look here. There's someone, you were just talking about India, and someone just said, what's up from India? Yes, he's actually been snake rescuing before. Pretty amazing stuff. There's another person saying, you talk about the story off the boat with Pat to catch the super deadly coral snakes swimming down the river. Jeez, like, oh my goodness. So you've had your fair share of encounters with snakes, and I mean that's just a genuine passion for these animals, you know, and almost I mean if you see a snake, you're going to catch it, right?
Yes and no. Now, if a garter snake went by me right now, I'd be like, oh, there's a garter snake. Like in the field, a lot of times, either for the local people or for the clients I have, it's worthwhile to pick it up and show people because, I mean, I've had people just 2 years ago, there was a woman who I was showing pictures of snakes and she started hyperventilating and crying. And here's an animal that I think is fascinating and beautiful, and she's so petrified of it. And so throughout the trip, you know, I would catch a, you know, a harmless little tree boa or something, and this woman would be like in the rooms, just gone. And so we started doing this thing where it was like, okay, well, can you stand in the same room as the snake and watch us hold it? And she would try it. And then I'd say, can you come, you know, within arm's length? You know, yes. Can you sit next to me? And these are days that are going by, and I'm talking this woman had crying fits. And P.S. by the end of the trip, she was holding these things. Just, wow, snakes are so amazing. She was like, look at these animals. And, you know, so that transformation is really fun to make. And then a friend of mine just last week sent me a photo of her neighbor or some friend of her mom's who killed a harmless northern water snake with a shovel. Because she said, oh, it was outside my house and I thought it was a copperhead.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just, with snakes, there's just this weird, people go, oh, it's an instinctual thing. No, it's not. Because if you show a child a snake, they're like, oh, cool, what's that? In fact, they're fascinated by it.
Yeah, and I think it's often a balance. I think, you know, some people in a space that we play in will kind of call you out for being tactile with wildlife. But I think,
oh, yeah.
You know, certainly there is a balance. And I think, you know, I think so often, especially with, you know, you were alluding to the people you met in the forest, and all of a sudden you've almost placed a value on this animal now by interacting with it and allowing them to possibly interact with it. You know, for conservation purposes, often you have to study these snakes and also to document experiences in the Amazon, to bring people into the Amazon is also, you know, something that needs to be considered. So, you know, I'm totally with you on that. But yeah, I've just always just been amazed by, you know, your balls of steel, for lack of better words, in terms of being able to, you know, handle these snakes. And, you know, I've enjoyed moving snakes myself, but I think, you know, I'd stay clear from some of the venomous chaps. You might be interested in this. We have a very common snake in South Africa, and I don't even know if you've actually been to South Africa before.
I haven't.
But we call them fezes or Mozambican spinning cobras. And what's interesting about these snakes is that they seem to not really have a problem with people. So, you know, even in lodges or houses or where, you know, people are active, you know, they'll happily make themselves at home. And the interesting thing about these snakes is you need to literally wear some form of protective gear, whether sunglasses or because they spit accurately from like 2 meters away. And it's incredible how accurate it is, because, you know, once you've kind of remove the snake and you know, put it out of harm's way, you take your glasses off and, you know, your glasses are full of venom. So yeah, interesting stuff.
No, and I just because we have so many people that have tuned in, though, I have to say there's a big difference between, you know, learning how to, you know, tail a snake and use a stick and get it out of the way, or to encourage a snake if you need to rescue it. Some of my best friends who are very skilled with snakes still have a rule of, well, I'm not going to work with the venomous ones, because unless you've grown up your entire life handling snakes to the point where you like know what they're going to do, you know how they think, it's not a good idea. So, and actually there's two people I would say are like where I look up to them in terms of snake handling, and they have a lot more, they're a lot more cavalier with it. They'll show you how tough they are when they're handling snakes. And just a few months ago, I was in a situation where we were working with a cobra, and they were like, "Oh, look at you! You're being so careful." And they were like, "Ha ha ha!" And I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm very I'm very careful."
Yeah.
But, you know, it's knowing how to be that careful. I always relate it to like driving. If you let a child drive on a highway, they'd probably, you know, they don't know the traffic rules. They don't know how the drivers act. They could get themselves killed. It's like, if you know snakes so well that you feel comfortable, then fine. But otherwise, I don't ever recommend that people try it.
I mean, the Amazon as well, I guess it's known for being, one of the most biodiverse ecosystems. So, there's so much there. And I can just imagine you, running around, whether you're on a solo mission or, taking people out and exposing them to this type of ecosystem. One of the videos which really resonated with me because I can relate to it, although I have no clue what a short-eared dog is, was seeing you come across an animal that, I'm sure you've kind of dreamt of seeing and possibly thought you had seen so many times in the forest, and all of a sudden seeing this, seeing this animal walk onto this little single track in front of you, and present itself. Can you just talk to that story a little bit? I just thought it was such an amazing experience.
That is an animal that we know so little about. It's a canine species endemic to the Amazon. And I mean, people have gone their entire lives working there without ever seeing them. They're like ghosts. When I told the local guys that I saw one, where I saw it, nobody believed me. And I actually hadn't ever. I was just like, oh, that's one of those things. I figured, whatever, I'll never see it. And the fact that it came out like that, and we started sort of talking, I started going, choo, 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 and he started turning back and looking at me. That was completely crazy. But I mean, I see your feed with, elephants and rhinos and all that stuff. And I'm sure that you've had these similar experiences where if you're in the bush and you're calm and sort of alone, and it's not that thing where you can go out and say, well, today I'm going to make something happen. But when you're there every day for a long time, and then it's just like, you'll be like standing there brushing your teeth one day and all of a sudden the craziest thing happens and you're like, oh, look at that, a unicorn. Like, it's just, that was one of those things where it was like, I was like going to pick up a camera trap or something. I was completely not paying attention. And I was like, here is this legendary animal, and just pulled out my camera.
Yeah, I guess it's that unpredictability, never really knowing what you're going to encounter. And I mean, I think I've got a picture here somewhere. These are just screen grabs, so apologies for the quality, but this is you basically on your own, paddling through the Amazon. And, please just excuse my, me being a bit naive here, but, when you speak about the Amazon, you're protecting a piece of the Peruvian Amazon, which I guess is, obviously, in Peru. Can you just talk a little bit about, the Amazon and give us a little bit more background on the Amazon, and then also these solo trips that you take, and what kind of inspires you to pack a backpack and a tent and just mission into the forest?
Okay, so the Amazon, let's just say, I think it's 8 countries that have the Amazon. Brazil has 60%, but then around Brazil is all these other Peru and Ecuador and all these other countries. So the headwaters come down, and so people get confused sometimes between the Amazon proper, this giant river that's the main channel of the Amazon, and then the millions and millions of tributaries that form that. So all of it is the Amazon basin. And to me, I'm more interested in all of these tiny tributaries, because the Western Amazon is where all the moisture system is hitting the Andes Mountains and raining down on the Western Amazon, and that's what's flowing out across the rest of the basin, and that's what's powering. It's sort of the engine that powers the Amazon. And so when you're on these smaller tributaries, you get to these places where, if there's waterfalls or rocks, or if it takes 16 days to get there, it's very difficult to go there. So from decade to decade, there's no humans. And so what happened for me was that I would be hanging out with local guys, and they would say, oh, do you remember, back in, 1980 when we went up that tributary? Oh, we went farther than we've ever gone. And we saw all those things, and they would be talking about these places like they were other worlds. And so I wanted to see them, but I didn't want to go on a hunting mission. I didn't want to go in there bring a bunch of guys, and I know that these guys are going to want to hunt and have a loud motor, and they're going to be spilling gasoline. And I was just like, you know what? If I'm going to go to these places where no one goes, I'm going to do it respectfully. And you sort of have to make a bet with your life and just say, I'm going to go try it. And so I would go up with poachers. I just opened a hard drive the other day, and I have video of just weeks that I spent with poachers, just going around watching them kill stuff because they could give me a ride up to my jump off point.
Wow.
And so this picture was, I had been in the jungle for a long time, way over a week. And for to get stuff like that, you know, you said before about how even telling, you know, getting photos of snakes and other encounters with wildlife is so important to bring the story back to people so you could show them the jungle. Stuff like this is when I take the storytelling seriously, because what I would do is put up my tripod, set the camera rolling, get in my raft, go down that tributary, run to land, and then come all the way back, get the camera, and it was just like, to do that and try to survive is just a really full-time job. But yeah, these solos, I've seen things out there that I try to capture it in the writing. There's no way to, you know, I mean, you hear about guys spending 2 or 3 weeks in a hide just to get one mating ritual of one bird. When you're out there surviving and trying to find food, and it's raining and thunderstorming and the river's rising, you know, 3-4 meters at night, and then, you know, there's so much crazy stuff happening. There's no chance of sort of video telling the story. So the only thing then is writing. And, you know, so there's always sort of this thing, and also you want to experience it. I don't want to spend the whole time out there, you know, with a camera in my hand. I just want to actually live it. But yeah, I've had solos that are complete disasters, and I've had to pull out the raft and rush down river. And then the last solo I went on was actually my most successful, but my least remarkable. I went for like, I think a week and a half down hundreds of miles of river, and all good. My bush skill was good. My luck was good. I had nice sightings. Nothing bad happened. Camped on the beaches. The Amazon can be very serene when it's calm.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that. I mean, we've been exposed to, you know, I guess similar types of terrain in Africa, you know, in Virunga National Park and parts of Rwanda, Uganda, and the DRC. But the jungle for me, I mean, if I compare it to like a open savanna, you know, where in terms of if you were to do a solo, it would, I think, be a lot less challenging just in terms of the natural elements. And I think when I think of jungle and rainforests, I think of, you know, rain. I think of, you know, battling to sleep. I think of mosquitoes. That there must be some serious challenges that you face, especially being on a solo mission like this. I think I saw a picture as well of a botfly or something being removed out of your arm at one stage. What are some of those challenges? I mean, what's the hardest part about being, you know, in the jungle, and specifically being in the jungle alone?
Well, being in the jungle alone is its own challenge. For me, I realized, you know, you're born probably into a room of people in a hospital, and then you go to school and you have your family. And so our whole lives is people around us. And I think we're a very, very social species. And so as soon as you detach that, which is very unnatural, and you're in this completely alien landscape, it's beautiful, but at the same time, your head is just like, you know, you start going crazy right away. I do anyway. But yeah, man, it's the assault from the bugs. It's the fact that it can rain for 17 hours and the river turns, you know, you say, okay, I know this stretch of river, you know, I'll go down and I'll be able to cover this many miles today. And then it rains and the river changes and triples in speed, and there's a whole new waterfall because the trees piled up. So everything you knew gets sort of canceled. And then in the really remote places, we still have uncontacted tribes that, you know, arrows, naked. They've never seen, you know, anything made out of metal. They've stolen a few machetes from like the other tribes people out there. But it's a whole crazy game, the Amazon. I would think like surviving in like savannah would be pretty nice, actually, because it's open. You know, you can, if you get lost, you could probably climb something and like see where you are to a degree, I would think. I don't know. In the jungle, the thing is, once you get lost, you have 150 feet of canopy above you. There's, even if you, I've done this, I've gotten lost and I've climbed the tallest tree I can find, which is, you know, it's like climbing a skyscraper. But even then, you can't really see over the trees. So you're under this green ocean out there. And so that's the thing. If you lose the river, it's going to be a while.
So it's all about the river, I guess. Yeah, you know, we could get into trouble on a cloudy day, I think, if you lost your bearings and you weren't able to use the sun. But at least, like you say, we've got the sun. You know, you're literally immersed in a forest, and you're using that river, I guess, as a means of direction. Another one that's, you know, you know, you must just excuse me for being a little naive, but in terms of like your area of operation, you've got animals, you've got large cats. How often would you see something like this? And in a lot of places in Africa, I guess people often talk about seeing tracks. In Cape Town, people don't actually realize, but we've got leopards literally on our Cape Fold Mountains, just outside the city. And more often you're seeing their tracks. Farmers will have sightings of them from time to time. But is this an animal that you can actually see visiting the Amazon? No.
You guys ruin it for us, man, because everybody comes to Africa and you guys bring them around and they see all this stuff just out there, and then they come to the jungle and they're like, where are the animals? I'm telling you, I get so many people that have been to Africa and then they're like, yeah, now I'm going to see the Amazon, and they're miserable because everything in that jungle, I think the ecosystem is so complex and so competitive that, I mean, everything has evolved to be invisible or to be silent. So even like, finding frogs, spotting monkeys, jaguars, they're so secretive. I mean, I see images of leopards out all the time. If you notice, even like just in people's photos, you don't see pictures of jaguars like that. You just don't. They're incredibly secretive. Just Tom is saying tracks everywhere. He's right. You see tracks everywhere. Every morning there's tracks on the trail. Tracking in the jungle is like, it's like reading the morning paper. It's like, well, what happened last night? There's tracks everywhere, but I've seen three jaguars in 14 years. It's not easy. And
amazing.
So it sucks when people show up and they're like, all right, let's where the jaguars at? And it's just like, oh.
And again, I mean, you're operating in such a remote wilderness, and it's the same in Africa. I mean, you go to some places that don't have a heavy human presence, i.e., like a lot of vehicles out or people actively tracking these animals, and you won't see a leopard because they're secretive. They're secretive animals. But as soon as you start habituating them to vehicles, that's when you start seeing these animals. So to me, it makes it almost even more exciting. I think visiting a place like this and knowing that they're around, and having that possibility of seeing them, and obviously the tracks that you see on a daily basis. But yeah, that was news for me. Something learned there. Communities. I mean, you were talking about obviously meeting tribes. There's still millions of people, or maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but there are lots of people still living in the Amazon.
Well, I mean, there's something like 25 million people living in the Amazon, but there's that's a mix between indigenous people, outside loggers, general society as we chip away at the Amazon. And then there's the places where there are uncontacted tribes. And that's a whole different story. These are tribes that during the rubber boom or so, really detached from contact with any other tribe. And so for at least a few hundred years, they've been cut off. And so their view of the outside world is outsiders will kill you, so kill them first. And I mean, we've had, so many, I'd say like once a year, someone gets killed by an arrow. I posted on my Instagram a picture of a logger. He had an arrow going through his chest, and I think he survived long enough to get to a hospital, but I don't think he made it. And then the guy who we were raising money for last week, Victor, has a crazy story where I think he said it was 2004, which is not that long ago. They were coming down river. On the river I work on, just a little further up, they were coming down river, and they had all these logs, and they sent a boat ahead, and they were like, okay, you guys go and cook breakfast on the beach, and we'll be coming slowly with the logs. And two people went with the boat downriver. And it just so happened that as soon as they got off the boat, the tribes came out, just full on like war cry. And the man got an arrow through the leg, and he told his wife, he was like, run for it, leave me, there's no way I'm running. And she jumped in the river and vanished. And so when Victor and the other guys came down like 30 minutes later, the head cook had been, I think they said he was decapitated. They'd taken out his stomach and looked inside to see what was there. They'd taken off his left arm, but it was like they really just, sort of did a science project on him. They just wanted to see what he was all about. And then they found the woman downstream. But this is 2004, and you have people shooting, 2-meter
Crazy.
arrows at people. It's absolutely crazy. And so there's a whole debate about, you know, do we need to contact them and bring them in, or should we just leave them there? I'm very much of the school of just leave them there. They're living out there with a knowledge system that no one else has, and sort of the idea of keeping these vast areas of wilderness intact so that it can be home for them is a huge help for conservation.
And, you know, and we'll talk about it now. She's running out of time. You know, Instagram gives you an hour to talk, and, you know, this conversation is just flying by. There's so many things I want to ask you. But you founded something called Jungle Keepers, which, you know, I took a look at. It's absolutely unbelievable. There is, certainly with regards to conservation, you know, involving communities is a key aspect, and putting a value on natural resources, and at least having communities benefit from their natural resources. Can you tell me a little bit about Jungle Keepers, and what it's all about? Someone's already asking how they can you know, donate, and I see they've been directed to a website. I've also put your website in my bio if anyone's looking for it, so feel free to check it out there. But tell us a little bit about Jungle Keepers, Paul.
Yeah, so in the comments, yeah, guys, check out Most and Cosme Take Pictures. He's got a ton of footage from and photos from Jungle Keepers. We just, as we were watching this river get cut apart, it was really a bunch of us that came together. Local guys, our partners from Montreal, Americans, Peruvians, we all came together and just said, look, this river sits between major protected areas. There's a huge national park called Alto Purus. There's the Tambopata River. There's indigenous reserves. But our stretch of river is completely unprotected. And so what's the point of having these giant, you know, World Heritage Site, beautiful, intact places if you don't have the heart of it protected? So we put together Jungle Keepers as a way of just raising money and trying to, we employ local rangers to patrol up and down the river. Because a lot of the problems that we have is very small scale stuff. It's people coming in from other parts of Peru, and just, you know, they'll burn down 5 or 6 acres and set up some houses, and they'll try and start farms. And whether that's a front for something else or they're actually trying to start a farm, it doesn't really matter. It's just keeping the, I was trying to explain this during the Amazon fires last year, that with the Amazon, every acre you lose is less moisture that's going into the air, which means there's less rain coming back down. So even a picture like that, even just a few acres going down is chipping away at that, especially when it happens over the whole basin. So Jungle Keepers right now, our entire mission is protect what's intact of the Las Piedras River. And we're trying to work with the local communities and local people, and just put the local people and be like, you know, don't be a logger, be a ranger. Stop other people from being a logger. And we're directly protecting, I think, 5,000 acres right now, and sort of secondarily protecting about 30. But
Wow.
we're in our sights right now is the ability to eventually protect the whole river. And that just means getting the communities to the point where we say, look, what you have right now is unlimited resources. You have all the monkeys, fish, timber that you need. They need to be educated about what happens when a road comes in. You know, when the outside world reaches an indigenous community, the story is almost always the same. You know, alcoholism, they get taken advantage of. They get, you know, they sort of realize they need cash to survive. They can't just go fishing. Things will change. So it's sort of, river is sort of ground zero for conservation. I mean, this is just the most beautiful, pristine place, so packed with wildlife, and that it's right up against where the uncontacted tribes live. So it's a buffer zone. So Jungle Keepers is just this huge collaboration where everybody's trying to save something before it's too late. I see a lot of people trying to plant trees, trying to restore ecosystems, but with tropical rainforests, once you lose those millennium trees, your grandchildren won't see that ecosystem come back to full health. So it's really, at this point, with the health of the Amazon and the state of the global environment, I think that preventative conservation of intact ecosystems is sort of the most important thing. And so that's really where we've been focusing ourselves.
And you do something so cool, and it's, you know, it's a trend that we're seeing in Africa as well, where, you know, we're seeing people who are wanting to come on safari and potentially not just sit in the back of a jeep and look at wildlife. You know, they're wanting to get their hands dirty, they're wanting to learn, they're wanting to contribute to conservation. So you've set up an ecotourism model which basically talks just to that in your area of operation.
Yeah, so I mean that's the whole thing, is that we want people coming down, and I'm getting distracted by the comments, but we want people coming down and working with the indigenous people, because when these local guys become educators, when they see just the reaction of outsiders, of when they see these giant trees, when they see the monkeys, it's like you see the local guys all just be like, yo, look at this is pretty cool. Like there's sort of this pride there, and they also go, you know, they just sort of think about it in a different way. But yeah, I mean, at this point, we're trying to find a way to get people even more involved. Right now, we take people rafting on the river, and when we replaced our roof on the research station a few years ago, we had people helping us bring all that. And so, yeah, it's also pretty exciting, because so many people message me and they're like, you know, how can I do what you do? How can I get more involved? And it's like, Kathmandu Expeditions. We take people down there, and they're just doing what we do every day. I mean, we have the things that we show them. You know, we make sure they have a good trip, but also whatever we're working on, whether it's camera trapping, whether it's patrolling, they're there with us. And so we've had and the cool thing is you meet people with different skills. You'll get people that, you know, contribute to conservation in different ways. I think that one of the mistakes that I see a lot of the younger people, like college students, making is they're all like, oh, do I have to become a biologist? And I'm like, well, no, not necessarily. Like, you might want to study video production. You might want to become an environmental lawyer. There's so many different ways that you can, you know, lend yourself to this, instead of just saying, well, I'm going to study stuff for a while. It's like, well, to me, it's like a lot of my heroes coming up in conservation were guys that were scientists that said, the papers I'm publishing aren't actually stopping the trees from going down. So what can I do to do that? And for us, having jungle keepers patrolling the forest and Kathmandu Expeditions employing the local people, we're protecting lots of forests, more than we ever thought we'd be able to protect. So I'm just going with what works right now.
And the biggest threats to the Amazon at the moment are what? I mean, what is your? I know it's a heavy question, but like, what does the future look like if we continue going the route we're going at the moment?
Well, all right, so I'd say the biggest threats to the Amazon are beef production, soy production, illegal gold mining. We've lost something like 20% of the Amazon so far, and it's only getting worse. Last year was the worst burning season in a while, and this year is projected to be even worse. And the thing is with the Amazon, again, because of that moisture cycle where you have the moisture coming out, creating the clouds, and then it's coming right back down, and then the whole planet is benefiting from that. If you break the cycle to the point where things look like the image you have up top right now, where everything is dry, you're not going to have that moisture rising up. And there's warnings that the Amazon cycle could be broken, and then if too much of it dries, it could collapse into a savanna, and then we lose the Amazon. And that's where you get into like really weird post-apocalyptic, like, I don't know what planet Earth looks like without the Amazon. Like, it would probably influence every single corner of the globe, no matter where you work, or rather where you live. So it's like, this is one that's not up for debate. And I think that we're the first generation that's had something this big to tackle, not just with the Amazon, but also with our oceans, with forests all over the world. That, you know, there's always been, you know, there's been like a war in a few countries, and in history, it's always been like isolated events. And now there's like this global thing that we have to fix. We have to say, why is it that, you know, mining permits always get granted? Why is it that we just let people cut down trees and just say, well, you know, I'm worried about other stuff? It's like, no, these are important issues. It'll come back, you know, when South America doesn't have irrigation and precipitation and clean water. It's like they'll feel that. So this is one where we kind of have to like be a little forward thinking. And I always emphasize that it's not an environmentalist issue. This is just like a basic life issue. Like, do you want to have free fish in the ocean that comes standard with life on planet Earth? Or do you want to ruin your fisheries with commercial trawlers? It's like, that's not because I'm a tree hugger. That's because it's bad for business. It's bad for your kids. Like, it's just not, you know. I feel like that's what we're hitting up with the Amazon. And the only way to stop that is, you know, one river at a time, one policy at a time, and just really making people understand. That's why I love, when I was reading up on you, that's why I love what you were saying about how that you provide crucial storytelling to conservationists, because I feel like so often conservationists are just committed to what they're doing and it's right up in their face, and they don't realize that they have to tell that story to people, or else it's almost like it didn't happen.
Yeah, and I mean, you do it a number of ways. You know, you alluded to, and I love the way you described it, you know, the Amazon is such an amazing place. It's difficult to, even with the use of film or imagery, actually tell that story. So, I mean, you're a conservation writer as well, and, you know, we're running out of time here, but I just wanted to learn a little bit more about this. You've been featured in Nat Geo, Huffington, and you're the author of two books. Two books, yeah. One of which we chatted about briefly, The Girl and the Tiger, which I'm dying to get my hands on. But that's obviously stemmed from, you know, your passion and you wanting to share somehow with, you know, an outside world. And I think as filmmakers, excuse me, we've always battled not creating the content, but reaching a critical mass. So you know, reaching people that aren't necessarily you know, a 60-year-old white male, and really trying to engage with a larger audience. And, you know, I just want to commend you, Guy. You know, you seem to be doing that on so many different levels, including, you know, your writing, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, no, thanks. The first book is Mother of God, and that's about the Amazon and those early days of getting to know the Amazon and everything. And then The Girl and the Tiger is the Mother of God is nonfiction, and The Girl and the Tiger is a novel, and it's sort of like also inspired by true events. Also, when my friends read it, they're like, "Oh, I know what you know what that is. I know what that." They can see through it. They know the experiences that caused it. But yeah, it's always about making people understand sort of, I think, what we take for granted about nature. You know, when you live out there, I think we all just naturally appreciate it. We see all the connections, and we see how the forest creates the river that the civilization lives off of. And I think a lot of people miss out on that. So I think that, you know, for me, like making a novel, or like, I mean, you know, movies where it's like an action movie, but about something, like, you know, like that movie Blood Diamond that came out years and years ago. It was like, you know, at least it got people to watch a movie where they're like, hey, by the way, this diamond thing is a problem.
Exactly.
You know, it's like you can take people along in a story. And I think that that's worthwhile, because when you read literature or books, it's always about like humans falling in love, humans trying to save the world, humans fighting with each other. It's like you never even hear mention of the fact that there's a living environment that we live on that's being destroyed. And I think that more conservation presence in our storytelling would be huge.
Well, dude, I want to just thank you so much for your time, Paul. I am so excited to come and visit you at some stage when this lockdown is over, and learn more about what you do. So we'll have to organize some kind of barter where, you know, I'll take you and show you my background, and vice versa. I would absolutely love
easy. That. Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, dude, thank you so much, and let's catch up after this. And also, while we're still on, do you know how to save it so it goes to your story? Is that a thing?
So I'll save it and I'll send it to you. And if you're keen, you can use it at a later date.
Cool.
There are a couple of videos that I wanted to play, but I think our connection is just a little iffy for that. That rat snake video was insane, and you know, you'd be, I think, quite proud of me. I caught a little house snake down the road the other day. I had to relocate it because this poor woman was absolutely terrified of it. And yeah, that was kind of my first snake that I've caught in a couple of years. But as a ranger, we actually used to track pythons, and you know, that was a lot of fun. You know, they're so easy to track in the savannah, and
they're
you
so
know,
beautiful.
You get your guests out and you literally take them, you know, as part of this tracking exercise, and go find these beautiful snakes. And although I was never a snake expert, I've always enjoyed spending time with them.
They're awesome, yeah.
But yeah, again, I see we're going to run out of time here. Thanks so much, dude. And we'll connect after this.
All right, man. Thank you. And yeah, looking forward to more.
All right, cool. Have you got a long trip home? You've got about a 40-minute walk back home.
Oh yeah, I got to figure. I don't even know where I am. I just went up. This is actually not that far away from where I found the rat snake. So.
All right. Awesome, dude. Go well. Take care.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.